wanted to ask, there's a bit of chat about the British and Irish League. Did you know this was going to come?
We'll pay most politician answer.
Yeah, okay. No. What does Squidge Rugby, what does Robbie think of it?
Yeah, the secret identity.
Sorry.
Yeah. Spider-Man's got a great view on this. Yeah. I think a lot of things can be true because there's been a lot of chat from kind of Welsh rugby in particular about an Anglo-Welsh league for a long time. A lot of people are very angry about that. And I think both things are true, that the URC has been really good for developing players for the Welsh regions. And I, as my kind of like completely personal view, I thought the URC was more entertaining last year than the Premiership. But then that's no slight against the Premiership as well, which is also a superb league. But I also do think there will be more interest in Wales at least for going and playing those English teams, right? And having those rivalries and getting up. And like, I grew up as an Ospreys fan in that era when, you know, you'd see the Ospreys and Leicester drew each other every single year.
Yeah, it did.
And so I've been to Walford Road more than the Liberty Stadium. And like, you know, when they finally won the other year, that was one of the best days of my life. I remember in there, you know, sitting in the stands, being delighted.
I'm glad you had a good day.
I had a great day. And those rivalries do kind of build, you know, quite naturally. However, as you raised on, you know, the pod previously yourself, but it raises big questions about Europe, which should be the pinnacle of club rugby. And you look at how good those knockouts were this year just gone, and how great the final was. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose the kind of specialness of that. I don't want it to become even more so than it is at the minute, where you kind of feel like there's 3 or 4 teams, the kind of Leinster, La Rochelle to lose. And then, you know, there'll be whoever the best English team is that year kind of then gets into the 4th, you know, Northampton, year just gone. Kind of fight out those top 4 spots. And you don't want it to kind of double down on that. You want it to be more open. You want there to be more of a competition rather than almost a playoff between Toulouse and, you know, Leinster, whoever wins that league. I see both sides. And I suppose it becomes, what does it look like? And is it a case where we have a bunch of divisions, a bunch of kind of separate leagues that feed up to one league? Or is it just everyone in and you play random teams? And as you know, you're mentioning yourself, like, is anyone going to are Leicester fans going to benefit for going to play Munster away instead of going and playing, you know, a team that you can travel to quite easily?
It's all about the structure of how it would be done, because you don't want to lose like the traditional rivalries, playing Northampton home and away, and whether you keep them. But then again, with the Welsh rugby, there's a lot in the West country, you know, the Gloucester, Bristol, Baths. There's a history there, which would be great. But then, does that mean that potentially you have like a Welsh southwest region, and do you make it in the Midlands region? But then you want to play, the Irish teams are in there to play you know what I mean? Like, you can't just have it an Irish setup and like the NFL almost, like just mix around. I don't know how you do it regionally and that kind of stuff. Or does everyone play everyone? But then the whole thing is, for me as a spectator watching home and away, that kind of contrast, rather than just going, I'll play you away this year, then at home next year, and vice versa. You know what I mean? There's a lot of questions that until they're answered, and the structure of things is, you can see it being really good, and then you can also see it potentially being just almost like a dilution of what's good about the game.
As people playing in it, do you think the Premiership being 10 teams is too small? Or is that purely an issue from the outside?
If you could have 10 competitive teams, which last year, say, take Newcastle out, there was 9 teams, and they actually are fighting, and anyone can beat anyone at the weekend. I'm sure Newcastle will be better this year as well. And it is, I think 10 teams there's enough there, providing the quality of rugby is good. And I think last year it was. Going to the final couple of weeks of the season, there's 7 or 8 teams competing for those top 4 spots, and nothing's locked up. And even on the final day, you know, Bath win and flips Aries and so on and so forth, and that kind of stuff. And it's, I think 10 teams is enough, providing, again, the structure of the season is in position where you can maximise those dates, and it's not sort of playing games that hopefully without playing not in international windows means that every game is full of international players, rather than playing some games. It always used to get me where it's like you play a lot of important Premiership games, and some teams have internationals away, some wouldn't, and it made your squad have to be good, but it kind of was unfair in some regards to those teams losing a lot of players. So I think 10 teams can be enough, providing the quality is there in those teams and the fixtures.
I think also, Coley, just on that is having those breaks is important, but equally they're long breaks. And can we get a structure and a calendar in place where you almost condense it? Because I feel like the Six Nations can be played at any point.
I can't. It's going to be played in February, March, mate.
Well, no, I know, because that's what it's traditionally done. But as in, like, but there's a lot of things to be
The
done.
thing is, you have to fit in Europe in there, which is the other
Well, that's the
issue. Is
thing.
like,
And what do you do with South African teams? That's the other thing as well.
Yeah.
Like, where do they? They've joined, which almost seemed crazy to think they'd be joining European rugby, and now they have, and now they almost feel a part of it. Well, they do, like, you know what I mean. And it's sort of what then if we do this league, then what happens to the South African teams? Like,
And in Italy as well.
of course,
Who
yeah.
the consequences would be massive if you cut those two Italian teams.
because they're on a roll, like the way Treviso have come along and Italian rugby's building and stuff like that. You don't want to be seen to be sort of cutting them out of the equation, because actually they've been really good for, let's say, the Six Nations. They've added, like, the past couple of years. Those Italian games are, in some regards, must-watch games, aren't they?
Well, they play a really enjoyable brand to watch, and they do. And you say, what happens to them and what happens to the African team? So, what do you say? There's more questions than answers, is how you put it. And I totally agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
One other point about, the other thing that's come to me now is regarding the, a British league would be stuff like the salary cap, because in the Premiership it's fairly structured and some teams don't spend up to it, and then you hear about stuff like Ireland spends more than certain Irish provinces spend more. The Welsh regions I don't think spend as much as the Premiership teams do. So are you going to not have a salary cap? Are the Irish going to agree to cap their squads and kind of almost have to suffer for the rest of the league? Or
Which I don't see happening.
exactly, and and the Welsh teams, they're going to agree to be on. Is it good for them to be on, say, lesser budgets than everyone else, or are you going to somehow generalise the amount of money people can spend? And there's, again, that kind of question in regards to. Because the great thing about Europe is you can always have the moan of, the French club's spending loads of money. You know what I mean?
It's a great excuse, isn't it?
They're beating us by 50 because they're spending loads of money where we haven't got. Whereas, and you beat them, and it's like, well, that's the thing. Whereas, how do you make that a competitive? And that's Europe one-off fixtures. Whereas, how do you make a whole league of? What I mean? It's tough to compete in the Premiership as it is and Europe on the salary caps against one-off teams who are spending more than you. Imagine doing a whole league where other teams got a bigger budget.
And you then throw in the bag of thorns, bag of spanners, bag of something unpleasant.
It can be whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
The unpleasant bag.
Yes.
As that was my rap name. The Leinster team. Again, I've got in trouble for speculating with Leinster spending before, so I'll do it again. But they already have a significant budget, but then a lot of that team is being topped up by central contracts from the Irish Rugby Union. So they've got, I think, 13 players on central contracts, which, there are reports out there that says that's similar to the Dragons' full squad that they're just getting in. And then do you put a salary cap in place for the team themselves, but then those players are counted separately still as they are, within Ireland? That becomes a whole difficult bag.
Of
Whatever
items.
you want it to be. Bag of items.
But no, it's true though, isn't it? And then like you say, then you're trying to get Europe in, and then the fixtures. Like, I love the European fixtures of going to places like Thomond Park. We've gone to Viva, of course, to play Leinster. But
the thing is, you go play there in big European games. If you're going to go play there in the 9th, 10th place playoff in a random game on a Friday night, it loses its specialty. And that every European game you go and play Leinster at the Viva or wherever it is, the RDS, it's a big game. Whereas if you're just playing them, they've won the league, we're 6th and out of it. It's not,
it's just another game.
Yeah,
Then.
there's no jeopardy to it, and that's what I think Europe makes brilliant. Is there's jeopardy in everything you win or lose goes into the final thing. Whereas sometimes in the league, you just don't want to get to the point where these teams have ran away with it, and we're just playing games that you lose that specialty of those games.
And then you're right. If you do a combined league, it's like you do 2 separate pools, then that's not going to work. If you do one giant pool, that's not going to work. So then other teams are going to miss out. But if they miss out, what do? Like, do they form a league with the Italian teams?
Yeah.
Georgia? Like, I don't even know. Like, there's so many things to kind of work
We
out.
should make it regional, right? And then the winners of each regional side go into this big competition by the other. We'll call it European Cup.
for argument's sake, right? Let's say this league happens, right? And they go, right, Premiership clubs, you got too many. We need you to. We need less numbers, right? So, a bit like the Irish model, like you're going to combine. So Leicester would join Northampton.
Where are we going to play, Ben?
Saracens and Quins would become a team. Bath and Bristol would become a team. Do you think on the back of that English clubs would do very well in
People
Europe?
are so happy about doing that in Wales to this day.
Yeah, that's
still
true. Yeah, you've got experience of it.
Just for any chairman or league officials listening / watching, that's one of Ben's ideas, just a hypothetical. Fully we endorse whatever happens in rugby.
It's an interesting one. I don't know, dominate, because I think the player pool suddenly becomes really condensed and really strong. For the first few years, it'd probably be quite difficult to kind of pass that and get fans behind it as well. I don't know. I'd be fascinated to see it happen, but then I'd be quite happy to be able to step back into our universe where it hasn't all the same.
I think on paper, like you look at the squads and the players available, you'd be like, if you mash them up, you'd be like, they're actually really good teams. The problem is the logistics of where you're going to play. Like, are you going to say Leicester and Northampton merged? We're going to play Matt Early, Wells Road, we're going to go to the Frank's Gardens, or we're going to play in Coventry. You know what I mean? It's all those kind of things and that regional identity, and you don't really have those regional identities in.
No.
Taking a
the
team and
UK.
moving them to Coventry, mad idea. No one would ever do that.
That has not worked.
Imagine
That's
doing that.
proven
Imagine
that's
going to
not
Coventry for some reason. But like, it's in Ireland, you obviously have those provinces of historical. We have counties in this. You know, they say they have counties in there, but we don't have like the East Midlands as a sort of, or the Midlands as a regional identity.
I mean, I was only throwing it out there. Let's scrap that.
Oh, yeah,
That's a terrible idea. Just at the top of my head, I thought, if you combine those teams, it'd be a hell of a team. Which they
You'd
would
have
be.
incredible depth.
Yeah, you
I
would.
think, like-
You'd have you would have unbelievable depth.
They'd come like third in the rugby championship. That like combined.
Potentially,
It
yeah,
depends if
compete in
they've
the
got two teams
situations.
or not. But yeah, that's the,
Let's go around the room. Does anyone actually want the British and Irish League to happen?
Oh, God, me first. I'm sort of at a point where I would be very willing to like open arms if it did happen, but I wouldn't be sorry if it didn't. I realize it's not a yes or no answer, but kind of no, but I would be all for it if it did.
So I would say no. I don't want it to happen. But could I see it happening? Yeah, I do. If it's driven by revenue, if they can figure it out, then I think it could happen. But given that I like the Premiership and I really like Europe, whilst I'm still playing, no. Maybe when I finish though, yeah, whatever.
yeah, I'd agree. I said no. I don't. As a player, let's say I like Europe, I like playing the French teams, that kind of stuff. I like the uniqueness of going to Ireland and playing them in a competition, and that you've earned the right to be in, and that kind of stuff, rather than just playing them in, a league.
Huge thank you to Squidge.
No, thank you for having me. No, it's been fun.